And he told me, you know what, Sophia, you are fornicating. And I was like, you always knew. When I was invited into the church, you always knew. I used to come in those conversations that I had with you every day. I told you everything that I was struggling with. I told you everything I was doing. You always knew. And then one day, a rumor came up in church that I was in love with the pastor. Oh boy. Oh boy. At first, I didn't hear it. I did not mind it until the mothers that were telling me, Sophia, you know, this is the place for you and everything, stopped talking to me. The women were keeping me away from their husbands, and then the husbands had to just stay away because, God forbid, your wife sees you with Sophia. So I come to America, find this church that I went to the first time. And, you know, when I went there, it wasn't what I was looking for. I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like I'm going back into the same thing that I was dealing with. So I walked out, and then this roommate that I was sharing a house with came and told me, hey, listen, come check out our church. And yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Because, you know, I was looking for a better place. I was looking for greener pastures. I walk into this church and oh my goodness, it was amazing. I felt welcome. The people were all so loving. I meet the pastor, he greets me. He even cared enough to know what my name was and where I was from and everything. He asked me the right questions. He asked me, you know, he cared about me. He showed me what I have been missing being a Muslim. He showed me he showed me that my voice mattered. He asked about the sensitive things in my life, like where I lived, who's taking care of me, how am I here, and am I with my parents? You know, he asked for all the details. And from the first time I was there, the first day, the first Sunday, I felt like, yeah, this is where I need to be. This is the perfect place for me. So, you know, time went by. I went every Sunday because now I became a member of the church. I went every Sunday. I started getting involved in the ministry. I became a youth leader. And the way the pastor took care of me, the way the pastor showed me that I mattered, every time the church ended, he would come greet you, check on you, each and every member. And, you know, I used to ask myself, how does this one person be able to do all that? Who has the time for that? Because it was all new to me. So I enjoyed that. I felt seen. For a person, like I said, when I was beginning, like I was from a Muslim family, when you're in a polygamous family, it's not easy to be seen as a child. As a girl child, it's not easy to be seen. But I finally met people who understood me, people who would hear me out, people who thought that I actually mattered. So I grew this very close relationship with the pastor. You know, I'd never seen a man come and empower me and tell me I am enough, tell me that I am capable. He started introducing me to all these possibilities about my life that I didn't even know about my life. And the way he spoke to my life, the way he showed me that I'm capable, that I am loved, that I belong. I grew a very big relationship with this man. It was so deep. Like when I went back home, whenever I saw something good, I was like, oh, I can't wait to go tell my pastor about this. I can't wait to see my pastor do this. I am a gift giver. So every time I saw something beautiful, I was like, oh, I think my pastor would like this. Because I had gotten a man, I was finally experiencing the love they talked about in the Bible. I was finally experiencing something that is different from the Muslim background that I had grown up from, because when you're a Muslim, for those who know and for those who don't know, you are separated. Women are not able to speak. I went to Muslim schools like my whole high school, whereby you have to cover yourself up. You have no opinion. You're not a man. You don't speak up. And I came from school and then would go back to home, which was a polygamous home because my dad had different wives and different children. So he didn't even have time to interact with me He would come home every day, but he would not have time to tell me, hey, my girl, you are capable of doing this. You are capable of doing that. It was this, that, go to school, come back, do this, do that. So it was never really a relationship with my father because he had so many other children. So have come to, when I came to this church, I started feeling seen. I started hearing these words from this man that I did not hear from my father. This man started showing me the possibilities of life. He started telling me I am enough. God created you with a purpose. It was a shocker to me because I was like, oh, I have purpose. My opinion matters. So I'm allowed to speak. I'm allowed to do this. So it was really interesting. So that drew me closer to this man. And I was like, I got to hear more from him. I have to hear what he's saying. And so I got into this great relationship with him. He loved me. He directed me. He prayed with me. Because I remember at that time, I was struggling with a lot of things. I used to drink. I used to smoke. I used to fornicate. I went to this man and he would not be like, oh my God, what are you doing? He was like, we can pray through that. God can help you through that. God forbid if I told that to my father. I would look like a disgrace that I was already, because my whole life I was told, you know what, you're probably going to get pregnant before you finish high school. So I was always being told these words that I'm going to fail. But now this man was telling me, despite of your mistakes, despite of the things that you're doing, you are going to be a better person. I was like, oh my God, like it was just like sweet aroma to my ears. I was for the first time hearing words that were validating to my soul. I was finally being seen. So I looked at this man and I was like, oh, if I had a father that was like this, my life would not be like the way it was. I would not have lived the kind of life that I lived. But I was like, you know what? God is good. Finally, I'm experiencing this. This is the redemption they told me about on the streets. This is the love they talked about, that when you come to Christ, this is what you experience. So I started walking the journey. I enjoyed him so much. He would pray with me out of all these things. Like we had this kind of relationship, because I remember one day, it was so open that I used to tell him everything that happens to me, that he would call me to his office and tell me, Sophie, somebody came and told me you were at the club last night. And I was like, yeah. I was at the club, and I would innocently, I felt like a child. I would innocently tell him, yeah, Pastor, I'm still struggling with that, but I want to stop. So how do I do that? And then he'll be like, you know what, first of all, you gotta get out of those places. So he directed me. He gave me the direction I never had as a child. We grew so close. I used to have very long nails, and I used to do this colored hair that I would change color every time. Like the way I looked, a lot of people would not understand, but he'll be like, Sophie, you don't dress like that in church. Because I would wear crop tops. I have pictures whereby I would wear crop tops and walk into church. And it was okay because I did not know any better. I was a Muslim and I was covered up. So when they told me in church, you can always come dressed the way you want, I was like, yeah, this is it. So I would go get the outfits. I did not separate the beach outfits from the church outfits. I would just walk in and did I see people, be shocked? Yes. But they did not tell me. But pastor would call me on the side and be like, my daughter, you don't dress up like that. You do not dress up like that. And I was like, oh, so what should I wear? And he would tell me, and I would run, go change my closet, because I finally had a father in my life. I wanted to change everything for him. I was like, if this is the father God is giving me right now, I'm on it. I'm jumping on it. I want it. I want this relationship. So yeah, we grew really, really close. I'm a gift giver as a person. And every time I walked into the mall and I saw this cute suit, I was like, oh my God, this would look good on my pastor. Yeah, I would get it, take it to him. We grew this beautiful relationship like I never experienced when I was a child. I heard these words that I never got to hear from a child. And at some point I was like, yeah, God is very intentional, because everything I wanted to hear, this man said. Everything I would want to hear, this man said. And that's how I knew that I was in the right place. That's how I knew that God had finally given me a father I was longing for my whole life. We had a good relationship. We went on. He directed me in ministry. And then one day, a rumor came up in church that I was in love with the pastor. Oh boy. Oh boy. At first, I didn't hear it. I did not mind it until the mothers that were telling me, Sophia, this is the place for you and everything, stopped talking to me. And then all of a sudden, the people that were my age stopped talking to me. I started feeling this sense of rejection that I'd been experiencing as I was growing up come back to me. But even then, I did not mind it. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is just a rumor. Every community, people talk and everything. I tried to ignore it. And then all of a sudden, I started being called out of my name because of the way I dressed, because of the nails I had. Because, I was also transitioning, but I wasn't the best. If you came to me with animosity, I was going to give you the same energy back. The only reason why I could listen to my pastor, because of the approach he came to me with, the love he rebuked me with. So it made me want to change. But the ones that came with animosity to me, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I would stubbornly refuse to change because I had experienced this way too much. You can't do this. You are not capable of doing this. I'd had it my whole life. So I didn't care if they told me. But I started feeling this energy in the church. I would go to the choir to sing, but I would feel this energy that I did not understand. And all of a sudden, it started triggering my emotions, my trauma that I'd gone through as a young child. And then it kept on increasing. And then I started realizing that the Father the Lord had given me started pulling back. The meetings reduced. Everything started reducing. The phone calls reduced. And I started experiencing this sudden distance that I did not understand. And I started asking myself, what did I do wrong? Because I knew at the bottom of my heart, I had no feelings for this man. I knew at the back of my mind that this relationship was too precious for me to even mess it up. There was nothing in this world I was going to, there's no mistake I wouldn't have corrected. There is no word I wouldn't have said for me just to hold on to this one person that had become a father to me. But one day, my pastor had a meeting with me, with some other lady who was in the church. And she told me, Sophia, I am my wife's husband before I am your pastor. And that is the day everything came crumbling down for me. I fought. I cried. I said all sorts of things. I begged my pastor to stay with me. I cried because the only right thing that has been happening to me in my life was being stripped away from me in that moment. I begged him to tell everybody the truth. I remember I was even willing to stand on the pulpit to just tell everybody, hey, listen, I want to hold on to this relationship. Because for me, I would have done anything to hold on to it. But I didn't even have that chance because people had already judged me. Remember, this is the only community I came to that I had ties with when I came to America. So I felt like my family was being stripped away from me. I felt like I wasn't given a chance to explain my part of the story, to tell the world that no, I did not have feelings for this man, but he was a father to me. He was unanswered prayer to me. I wanted so bad to tell my story. I wanted to tell everybody. But no one would listen because I was already judged. No one ever came to me to tell me, Sophie, is it true? No one ever came to hear my part of the story. So I got so broken. I remember I cried myself to sleep every single day. And by then I had a boyfriend. And he would ask me, Sophie, you come to this place that you are telling me about every time I was dedicated. Trust me, I was at church all the time. And every time they said there is church, I would brush my hair, makeup, and run. So he was asking me, why are you going back to this place that keeps taking so much from you? Why are you going back to this place whereby they make you cry? They make you, feel unwanted. They reject you. Why do you go back? You were never like this when you were in the world. There's no any day I ever saw you go to bed sleeping, crying because you are hurt. So how come the place that you were supposed to seek sanctuary, the place that was supposed to show you the light, the people that were supposed to love on you are hurting you like this? And I would sit there with no answer. I had no answer because everything was going so well. So I had no answer to him. And he would tell me, why don't you stop going? And I was like, I don't know, I cannot leave. Me, who used to come in with my head held up high, very happy, all of a sudden I shrank. I always wanted to be the first in church because, the people are few. I'm not going to, when I walk in, so that a lot of people don't have to see me. But I knew I had to be there, because I had experienced everything they had told me that was in Christ in this place. Why all of a sudden was I not seeing that anymore? Why all of a sudden people are turned on me? Why all of a sudden no one wanted to hear me? Yet before, they cared so much about what I said. When my pastor told me that my wife's husband before I'm your pastor, that means that he was supposed to, in that meeting, he told me that I'm going to distance myself from you. I'm going to walk away. And that broke my heart. So I was like, okay. In the midst of all that was happening, I remember there's this lady, she came to me and held my hand and started talking to me. But the thing is that my eyes and my love was so fixated on my pastor, like this woman. I was like, no, I want the pastor. I want what I was experiencing. I don't want that to go away. So I wouldn't even see this lady. But in the moment, she used to come and be the mediator in these meetings. And another meeting I had, after that happened, I had another meeting with the pastor where I was told to step down from the ministry. When I came into church, when I started serving God, I felt like I have a sense of purpose. Like I told you guys about my story, I felt like I didn't have purpose where I used to live. But this purpose had made me feel like wanted. It had given me the validation that I've always wanted and everything. So when I went into the meeting and my pastor said, you have to step down from the choir, I blew out. I used to have anger issues by then, but I remember that moment I stood up and I was going to beat the pastor up. I was going to beat the pastor up because I told him, hey, listen, why are you making me step down from the church? And he told me, you know what, Sophia, you are fornicating. And I was like, you always knew. When I was invited into the church, you always knew. I used to come in those conversations that I had with you every day. I told you everything that I was struggling with. I told you everything I was doing. You always knew. So that never made sense to me. That's why I was going to fight him. That's the day I walked, and thank God for this lady that I was not seeing. She held me back and she told me, Sophia, they don't fight men of God. But that day I was going to, yeah. So we had the meeting and I went back home broken. Now this pain was more than, so these things were all happening, but it's like every week I was experiencing something that was worse than the other. And that was all happening amidst all the church members like rejecting me, not talking to me, looking at me like as an outcast. The mothers in the church were like, this is the girl that came to ruin the relationship of the man of God and woman of God. So they joined the team in hating on this Jezebel. Yeah, somebody one day called me a Jezebel. And then that passed. And the young people, women did not want to associate their children with me because they were like, I'm going to be a bad influence to this. I remember there is one particular lady, he told his sons to stay away from me because I was a bad influence. These were the young people I was leading in the youth group, and I was taking care of them, hanging out with them like all the time. They'd come family to me, and their parents told them, hey, listen, you can't hang out with that girl. She's going to be a bad influence to you. So that group was also done. The young people were looking at me like a spectacle because they were like, that is the girl. The women were keeping me away from their husbands, and then the husbands had to just stay away because God forbid your wife sees you with Sophia. I was like, yeah. So it happened. I got crushed. Everything just started, like, even if I wanted to do something good, I would keep quiet on it because I was like, God forbid it came from Sophia. How can something good come from her? I got an encounter with men of God who would manipulate my pain. When I sat down and told my story, like, oh, this was like a father to me, they would come and act like they're fathers to me. They knew what I wanted to hear. They knew what I had experienced. So they started manipulating the situation to work for them.